This is Aratrika.
I'm Rushti,
And I'm Jinal.
our special guest.
Yay! Welcome back to the second half of our podcast about moving. In this part, we're going to talk about any future experiences that we might have regarding moving and our thoughts about it, and any advice that we want to give to anyone who might have to go through moving.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't like the weather in New Jersey, so I definitely want to move out of here in the future. And I feel like if I hadn't moved in the past, I would definitely not even have the courage to think about it, because as I mentioned, I'm a person that just tends to cling to the past. But I feel like for me, these experiences have proven to me that if I did it twice, I can definitely do it again, even if this time it'll probably be me by myself, hundreds of miles away from my family and friends. But yeah, I feel like moving in the past definitely gives you like a whole new level of courage and just hope. And it shows you the possibilities of how all the different ways your life can turn out, just if you're willing to let go of what's comfortable to you, what's familiar to you. And I definitely cannot wait to move and just to experience another way of life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think our especially the three of us, our experiences of moving has given us the courage to think about our future maybe in a different place and not the place that we live in currently. And I think that's actually such a important characteristic in a sense to just adjust to any situation that you may come across.
So, like in the previous podcast, all three of us mentioned how when you move, when you move in a way that you weren't expecting to, like, as all of us really moved when we were kids. So it wasn't really up to us when we moved.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to idealize the place that you left behind. But when you move as an adult, or when you're older and you take that decision by yourself, it's very easy to idealize your new home. And I feel like that's a really important point to remember not to do that, because if you idealize that new place that you're going to move to, you're going to have really high expectations, and those expectations might not be met, and then you might regret your decision to move, and everything's just messy because now you're missing your old place, you're also regretting your new place. And it's just good to have really low expectations when you move as an adult, so that you're really ready to take on whatever that new life brings.
I can definitely stand by that point, because I think to a certain extent, I did experience that when I moved here. I idealized America to a very high expectation. And to certain aspects, those expectations were met. But then at certain points, it wasn't exactly how I imagined it. And that's what made my transition very difficult for me. So definitely we should, I think, just know the reality of the place that we're moving to and know what may come upon us once we do move and what circumstances we may get thrown into.
Yeah, I for sure. I feel like I actually never thought about this until you mentioned it, Eritrika, but I am actually very much guilty of idealizing the place that I would move to. I guess I'm just, yeah, I always do. Like, whenever I think about moving to, because the places that I want to move to are Miami, either Miami or Cali, or just a place that where it isn't cold for half the year. And I tend to idealize, the weather, the beaches, and I feel like it's so important to not just get ahead of yourself and to keep your expectations grounded, because once you do move and you realize that reality isn't as, perfect as you thought it was, it's gonna hit you. And I feel like that's something that I should start keeping in mind from right now.
Sorry to burst your bubble. Yeah, so I love the fact that you're so willing to move, especially because New Jersey's weather is so bipolar. Like Rushdi said in the previous podcast, the previous half of the podcast. Um, I always idealize places too, and I'm also guilty of doing that. But it's more of like, oh, I'm dreaming of this location. I wish I lived in Paris, or like I wish I lived in Switzerland. Um, but when I really think about legitimate plans of moving in the future, to be honest, even until up until a year ago, I would be really willing to move and like be willing to explore new places. Well, I do want to travel, but you know, it's different for living somewhere. So, you know, even up until a year ago, I would be really open to that idea. The more I'm growing up, the more I just want to stay where I am. And it's like so conflicting because it's like there are pros and cons to both.
Mm-hmm.
There's pros of staying where you are because you know you've built a life here, it's stable, it's
You're
comfortable.
comfortable in your like
You're
shoes that you,
comfortable.
yeah.
You're comfortable. But then there's a part of me, like that guilty conscience that's like, you know, why do you want to stay comfortable? Why not just like go out and take that risk and take that plunge? Because you know, you might regret it if you don't. And I feel like that's the philosophy that I want to abide by throughout my life, is that just take that plunge, because at the end of the day, you might be content being comfortable, but if you don't take that plunge, you're going to think about it for the rest of your life.
You're going to regret it.
You're going to think about that decision, and then, you know, when you're much older, you're going to be like, okay, even if it didn't work out, I would have been able to, you know, come back or go back to my old life. But if I never took that step, then I would have I wouldn't know what I'm missing. I wouldn't know what I'm missing. And I guess that's a big thing that that comes with, you know, the whole aspect of moving, is that fear, really, that you could face of not knowing, the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also that fear of the unknown that could blossom into something beautiful, and it could change your life, you know. So it's a very tug of war thing that ultimately the decision is yours. No one can convince you otherwise. You have to take that plunge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like as someone, I don't remember who mentioned it, but in the past it wasn't us making the decisions. So either way, you know, we had to find ways to cope with whatever came with moving, but when the decision is in your hands yourself, I feel like it becomes much more of a difficult thing, because even though I do tend to, you know, idealize these places in my mind, there are also moments when I'm like, why? Like, I have family here, I have friends here, you know, why would I ever want to leave all of that behind and just leave like the comfort, the familiarity of the place behind and move to a new place? But like you said, I feel like I would much rather take on the risk, and I can always come back. You know, if it doesn't work out, no one's going to shut me out. I can always come back. But I would much rather take the risk and not regret it for the rest of my life than live in comfort, you know, thinking what could have been.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a theme in I think every individual, I could say, just the fact of the fear of the result of the risk that may occur. And I think that's what holds a majority of a lot of people back. The just thinking about the negatives, I think, but I think it's very important to keep in mind the positives. Not completely idealize everything, but at the same time, just know your pros and cons, I'd say, of a move, of a change, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a big move, like moving countries. I think just in general, like for some people, even moving schools is a big thing. So it's just, I think it's the type of change you have to kind of just know your reality, face your reality, and know what you're going into.
So, you know, in the first half of the podcast, we talked about moving as kids. And as we all know, it is a bit simpler to adjust as a child because you're not strict in your beliefs yet. You can mold into your new surroundings, but it can be difficult to move as an adult. So do you guys have any advice about that?
Yeah, one advice is that don't lose your accent. I'm kidding. No, but just I'd say don't lose the things of your past that make you unique in your present. Um, for me, I mean, this was very small, but when I moved from New Zealand, I did have a bit of an accent. Within a few months, I'd say I lost that accent. But I think it's what made me unique, and I wish I could have held on to that accent, honestly. But I don't. It's okay. But no, and also just I'd say don't get held back by the negatives that come across in adjusting. They can actually demotivate your whole like transition period a lot and make you feel very sad and down. But it's important to just concentrate on your next move in the transition period of what you want to do next and what you think would make you feel better in your present.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's so important to not let go of, whatever made you, because of course, living in any place, it does add stuff to your character that you don't even realize. And sometimes it's hard to like hold on to that stuff when you move to a country where expectations are different. But I would say my number one advice, in regards to moving, is to remain optimistic, because unless you're optimistic, it's so hard to actually adjust to a new place. So don't idealize, but definitely try to remain optimistic, and just know that, again, things almost always do work out, and things just have a way of falling into place. So I feel like if you're optimistic, it only makes the process easier. And yeah, that's what I would say.
I guess what I would say is that, no matter where you move, and this is, as an adult, when you move, you might move into a new house or your new apartment. Um, Try not to confine yourself indoors most of the time. Go out exploring. Go out exploring your new location. Go to the mall. Go to the local restaurants.
Go
Just
to the
so you
parks or yeah.
go to the park. Don't confine yourself in your new home, whatever that might be, because when you're indoors confined, you might feel that
Sense of
I guess
isolation.
that, yeah, that sense of isolation, which can in turn just break you down and you can lose your sense of optimism, which Jinal said is so important. So try to go outdoors and try to explore the new place that you're moving into, just so you can build that sense of familiarity. It's the same as when we make a new friend. As much as possible, we'd want to go hang out with them. We'd um, go to the movies with them, go to coffee with them. It's the same as getting to know a location. um, you know make that new home your friend in a way, just so it's easy for you to adjust, and it keeps you optimistic, and you can call that place home in the future, and it's not just some stranger to you.
Yeah, no, I feel like the fact that like both of you guys said, along with having a sense of optimism, I think it's so important to have a sense of familiarity with your surroundings, wherever you move to, because I think that's what would make you feel like included in that community. I think both of them go hand in hand. Being familiar with your surroundings gives you the sense of optimism that you would need in order to become successful in your new place.
Exactly.
So with that, we have come to the end of our second part of our moving podcast. Thank you so much, Jinal, for coming in our podcast and giving your input on moving from different countries and adjusting We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you guys and just sharing our experiences.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys will see much more of Jinal in the coming podcasts and many more of our friends. So yeah.
If you want us to talk about any other types of experiences or anything related to moving, please let us know in the comments below. But with that, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell notifications. See you in the next one. Bye.